Hello and welcome to the Footy Interchange. Great to be back in the chair. My thanks to Eliza Reilly for filling in for me last week. But looking forward to getting stuck into all of the footy issues. We're pretty much a third of the way through the season, which is quite incredible to think. But this is the show where we get right around the country. We chat to people in all the different states right around the country and talk about the local issues to their local teams. Very excited to be back here alongside Will Schofield on the Footy Interchange. Scully, welcome to you.
Where's my thanks for filling in for you?
No, you're here all the time.
Eliza's the better performer. I do agree with that, right? So she needs to be thanked for filling in for me the week before,
Yes.
for you last week. But
Yes.
do I get anything? No.
No.
Okay.
No, but we just have to sit there and do your job, Scully.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, it did very well, Eliza. A lot of positive feedback for her too. It's great to have your company on the program. My name's Adam Papalia. If you've just joined us for the first time, do a bit of work for 6PR and for Fox Footy as well. So go across all the BackChat channels.
Everyone.
I can't actually name all the places that he works because there's so many of them, to be honest. But I'm very pleased to have him here because it means we can get stuck into a lot of the issues. And we'll have your questions coming up a little bit later on in our breakout pod too. As always, you can send them through to us. I'll definitely see them if you hit me up on X or Scully on X as well to send them through. But you can leave your comments in YouTube too, and we'll get to those. But Scully, first things first, I'm going to give you 10 seconds today.
10?
That's it. 10 seconds to have your say on the tribunal because all you're going to say is outcome over action and that'll be it.
I'm going to say outcome over action is a disgrace. The AFL needs to move to action over outcome and we'll all be happy. Well, at the very least, I'll be happy. Have you seen the Chera one?
Yes.
Like, I mean, mate, like that's a stoppage push off and he's got it. He hasn't even got it properly wrong. It's slightly wrong, but he's not swinging his arm to punch him. He's not. You said 10 seconds.
Yeah, well, we've got to wrap you up now.
They're challenging. Curtis deserves 0. Chera deserves 0.
0, not 1 for Curtis? Completely
0.
0.
All right. So would you like to just get defensive pressure and tackling out of the game?
No, I
Sounds like you
don't. And I was a little bit unsure about those rundown tackles when they were hit up last season, and there was a few of those because that's something that we've emphasised in the game for generations is run, chase, harass, and tackle. And I guess they don't like the two pinnings of the arms in that type of action. That's why he's been suspended.
But that means the only alternative is to not tackle then, because with a player with both hands on the footy and elbows in, you literally cannot tackle them unless you put your two arms around them.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I just, when I say 1, I thought he would get 1 because that was the precedent that was set last year.
they'll give him 3.
But he'll get 3 on this one because of the concussion.
Yeah, he'll get 3. He deserves 0.
The tribunal, the umpires certainly been stirring Scully up and will continue to do so, I'd imagine, right throughout the season. Ross Lyon, he's back to old Ross a little bit that we've seen in the last couple of weeks where he's getting a little bit more frustrated, a bit more like what you saw him at the Saints first time around and also at Fremantle too, giving players a bit of a spray on the boundary line, subbing players out early. Is there still room in this modern AFL game for a coach to absolutely go after his players?
Yeah, absolutely there is. In fact, I don't think there's room for the opposite. I think they need to do less of that. You're seeing teams... spoke about a little bit about this during the week, and I saw Herd's word over on Channel 9. He had word that Ross had given an almighty post-game cook. The thing about playing in the AFL is you're not playing amateur footy. You're not in a business firm. You're not dealing with HR departments on game day. It is a completely different environment that. It's not only the strong survive, but this is a high-performance environment. You need direct, instant feedback. It's one of the great strengths once you come out of the AFL that you realise you learnt as a player is like you can cop feedback and you can cop a spray. Like to say that there's not room in the game for that means that there's not room in the game to change culture. Because what a big spray does to a locker room, to a team, it sets the standard of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. What doesn't set that is sitting down for a lovey-dovey meeting on a Tuesday and saying, "Oh, good try here, Paps. It was really nice of you to try defending your man, or your work rate wasn't quite right, but go well next weekend." You're not going to change your action. You wouldn't even change your action out in the real world. But at AFL football land, the highest league in the country, you need to be told. And that won't change whether or not people or generations change and how they get taught. The important thing also to realise is, and no one, unless you're at the football club, realises this, Ross would give the bake. But then the Monday, he's following up. Coaches don't just cook players and then don't speak to him again. Hugo Garcia on the bench, he cooks him in the second quarter, he subs him, he drags him, an ultimate drag, the red shirt drag. But he isn't then not following up. And no one ever sees that. There's not footage of Ross Lyon sitting Hugo Garcia down for an hour on Monday with his line coach going, this is how we're going to get you better, mate, because I know I was hard with you on the weekend. I know that must have been hard to get subbed off and they've got the relationship. So we don't see that. I guarantee you Ross would have followed up. Mate, he could have taken him out for dinner for all we know. That's the follow-up you get, and that's the relationship you have with your head coach. So to say that there's no place in the game for that or it's falling away, that's a joke. And anyone who thinks that, I bet goes for a side that is lacking winning culture. I can guarantee John Longmire, Chris Scott, Chris Fagan, these Craig McRae, you see them in the public and you go, oh, he probably doesn't have a cook in him. I guarantee you they have cooks in him when needed. And St Kilda need it. They need it.
I've heard a few of the old Freo guys talk about Ross Lyon and some of the sprays he gave during his time at Freo and how he'd pretty much retired players like mid-game. I said, you're never playing again. But they absolutely love him for that follow-up afterwards and the relationship they had, even though in the heat of the moment, it might have been pretty full-on. What best spray you ever copped?
Oh, mate. I mean, the one that comes to mind is the Simo one when I headbutted Zach Butters at the Gold Coast gather round. That's not leadership. That was pretty much it. But mate, I had lots. I had John Worsfold. It was against Carlton under the lid, and the ball was rolling towards the boundary line. Looked like it was going out, and so I sort of relaxed. Lockie Henderson, who I played at Geelong College with, kind of came around and pushed me out of the way, and I'd relaxed thinking the ball was going out. I got pushed to the ground. Lockie kept it in, kicked to the top of goal square, mark goal, drag straight away, and Woosh's sprays wasn't necessarily a Ross Lyon spray. His voice got quieter, and so you had to really listen. And he'd ask you hypothetical questions that he knew the answer to, like, "G'day, Scully. Do you think that effort was good enough down on the bench, down on the boundary?" No, Woosh. What was that? Do you think it was good enough? Is that ever going to happen again in West Coast colours? No, Woosh. No, Woosh.
So he took more of the fatherly approach.
Yeah, no, it wasn't fatherly. It was
more the I'm not angry, I'm really disappointed type.
Yeah. And if you do it again, you may lose limbs.
I thought, speaking of coaches, and we saw the Ross Lyon version of that, but the video that Fremantle put out about Justin Longmuir as well, with the pre-match address to his side and firing them up. I thought that was really good vision to see because it's the type of vision we don't get a lot of, I don't think, of Justin Longmuir. The criticism of him from fans particularly is that they don't see him reacting much in the coaching box. He's staring at the laptop. He's not the most polished public speaker when it comes to press conferences and getting the message across publicly. But I think behind closed doors, he is quite strong and firm with that messaging. So it was really, I thought, interesting to get that other insight to him.
So just remember that anything we see from inside the four walls is completely planned. Like Freo haven't gone, that was good, let's put that out there. They have filmed that and they know the criticism he gets and they know the public perception and that's why they've put it out because they want this conversation to happen. Yeah. But I think it's great because it does show what he's really like. He and the football club, Freo, had a lot of pressure on them last week. If they didn't react and they didn't buy in and they didn't change their structure and strategy, they would have got towed up by Adelaide. And you start, very quickly the conversation turns from where it is now, how good were Freo, defence was amazing, 4-3, they're kind of back, to get done by Adelaide at home. They've lost 2 games at home, one to Sydney, one to Adelaide, and are they going to play finals? So it was a big game for them. So there's the element of the pressure from Justin Longmuir. But I just think there's a lot of criticism of Justin Longmuir when things aren't going well and not enough positivity when they play well. So what he was able to do from a game plan point of view on the weekend, on Friday, they completely changed the way they played. Like they came into that game being one of the longest kicking teams in the AFL and they short kicked and they changed the way they moved the ball. Their marks have come right down, but they marked the footy more and they used it better. But they also, the way they were shaped across the ground, they made the ground really big. So their high half forwards and wingers played a big role in this. So when teams looked up, and Adelaide looked up, they didn't have anywhere to go with the footy. And then when they won the footy back, Freo, they were the ones with authority at being able to move the ball better. So I just think that great credit's got to go to Justin Longmuir because he's got his playing group who are under a lot of pressure to perform to execute an alteration of their game plan to nullify one of the best offenses in the league. So you tick, tick, tick. I just would like to see a lot more positive confirmation of what he's done. Like, that's a good coach right there. And I tip my hat to him.
The other one I want to talk about, and obviously we do have a bit of a WA lens a little bit at times on this show, and I want to make it as wide as we possibly can, and that's where the listeners come into it too, with sending through the questions if you want to drive the agenda. Had a bit of feedback on socials too about some of the other footy shows around the country on TV, particularly not really focusing on the interstate clubs all that much. We're keen to do that here as much as we can. I'll keep it with a WA lens because, I don't know, I'm just getting a bit of a feeling from just chatting to people that aren't in the footy media. They're literally just supporters of clubs. West Coast in particular, there's another bad loss on the weekend. Like, I know it was only 50 points in the end, but 18-16 the Hawks kicked.
Oh, it should have been 100 points.
And it should have been a 100-point loss. The losses that they've had over the last few years are bad, but it's the lack of wins, I think, that's the real issue, and they're on track for that again. A winless start to the season. The feedback I'm starting to get just from chatting to people are like, why should I be watching West Coast right now? Why should I be paying money to go to the games? Is it worth going to the games if they're not going to be competitive and get there? This is a club that's had success for such a sustained period of time and been so successful and banked on crowds of 50,000 plus, particularly since going to the stadium, but every seat being sold out. If they continue on this trend, and we're looking at 2-3 win season this year, if they can manage that at the moment, and that looks a long way away, they'll pinch a couple somewhere. Coming off a couple of wins over the last couple of seasons. Are they in danger of losing out on a generation of supporters? Because young kids coming through, in what world are they thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to support West Coast right now, even if my parents do, even if my family always has? If they're not going to win any games for 5, 6, 7 years, if that's what it's looking like, that has to be a real concern.
So, only thing I want to pull you up on is the success comment. So, yes, they've been successful, but what West Coast have been are competitive. So, yes. I don't think supporters need to see their team win. Otherwise, Essendon don't have any supporters, St Kilda don't have supporters, North Melbourne don't have. I don't think they need winning sides because
no, it's not about winning premierships. I completely agree.
Yeah,
with you
or not even premierships, mate.
Or finals every
I don't
year.
think you need to win. I don't think it's an issue if West Coast don't win a game, yet they play like they did against Essendon or Brisbane, where they're competitive. Where you can go to the game, they don't win, but you've got guys just trying their guts out. People love that.
Yep.
People have always loved that. I don't think it's about wins and losses. So the criticism isn't the winning. The criticism is the absolute uncompetitive, at times looking like lacking in absolute effort from the side. It doesn't matter if they win or lose. People get over that in 1 second.
It's that experience, though, for people supporting the club. And they've had 2 wins, 3 wins, 5 wins last year. How many do you think they can win this year?
0.
They'll win a game somewhere.
Mate.
They'll pinch a game somewhere. They will.
Okay.
Somewhere.
Okay.
But look, less than 3, probably. Definitely less than 5 with the way things are going at the moment. I just don't see why young kids coming through now, when you've got a choice of all the different teams that are there, would be wanting to support a team. And if you have a sustained period where you aren't competitive and you aren't winning games for 5, 6, 7 years through that period, that can become a real concern to the bottom line of West Coast, who have been so used to being so successful and just having that automatic support.
People aren't saying this about Richmond right now because they're competitive and the brand of footy they're playing. I think their fans are like, well, there's some absolute hope and promise here of the brand they're playing. So it's going to very quickly shift to, do not just even the players. I just refuse to believe that West Coast list is that bad that they can't be competitive. So then, is it the game plan? Is it the execution? Is it the coaching staff? What is it about that makes them non-competitive? Because you don't look at Richmond like that. And I know they've won games, Richmond, but the way they're playing, even in their losses, you're kind of like, they're not good enough to beat this side, but they had a crack. There's multiple games in the last 3 years at West Coast where you literally couldn't say they had a crack.
I agree with you. And that's why people, particularly young kids I'm talking about. The supporters that are there at the moment, I don't think they're going to drop off, but it's the ones coming through this next period. If you go to school every Monday and your team's been terrible, you're not likely to support them anymore.
Both my kids go for Hawthorn.
Well, there you go.
And they go to Freo games.
And you won a premiership with West Coast, and your kids support Hawthorn.
Yeah, it's difficult though because I don't really support anyone.
Well, true, but still, it's I don't know. It's just a really intriguing period in the club's history right now. And I think the on-flow effect of it is going to be the interesting part in 5 to 10 years' time as to what this period does to the bottom line of the club going forward. Interesting debate to have. Would love to hear from you. Comments on YouTube, absolutely. You can hit us up on social media as well. Let's get around the country. This is the Footy Interchange. The Footy Interchange. Well, let's head to Victoria and chat to our correspondent over there, Drew Jones, of course, from Fox Sports News, and also from Goat Fantasy, which we'll talk about in just a little while. Drew, great to chat to you as always, mate. We've spoken a lot about the Western Bulldogs on this show over the last few weeks, good and bad with some of the off-field stuff going on, but that was a mighty performance from them on the weekend.
Hello, gentlemen. Great to be with you. Luke Beveridge, the mad scientist. He just always finds a way to get it done with this group. And I reckon he likes it when he has to spin the magnets around. Like Sam Darcy has been one of the breakout stars of the season so far. He goes out. How do you plug his significance and his effect in the forward line? James Harms, 4 goals. He's reinvented him as a forward. Reilly West kicks 3. They just find a way to get it done. It's a superb win in Canberra over GWS. And I know we've talked a lot about Luke Beveridge's future. I think the Doggies have played this well. I don't necessarily feel like Luke is coaching for his job because he has such pedigree and such history at the club, but he's been thrown down this challenge of, can you keep this team competitive? Can you sort of retool on the run? You've got good players. Can you get the young guys to pop and to bounce and to excel in new roles, which he's been able to do? And I reckon this is purely from this is an opinion perspective, but not based on what the Dogs are doing behind the scenes. I think they've played this perfectly, and I reckon Bevo, I can see him coaching into the future, and this Dogs team could contend because I reckon they have handled the start of the season really well.
Jeez, imagine the team they'd have with Bailey Smith and Jamara going around. But I guess we've moved on, especially from the latter. And for what it's worth, James O'Donnell, I don't think he got enough plaudit. Very underrated player. He went back and did a very good job against GWS. Now, we spoke about off the top Ross Lyon and him giving sprays, and my thoughts that was a brilliant move by him. Have St Kilda improved under him?
I feel sorry for Hugo Garcia, who's sort of the face of it, 15 games into his career.
Don't feel sorry. Don't feel sorry, Drew. He's an elite athlete. This is what happens at elite level. Don't feel sorry. That's what happens. It happens to everyone.
Yeah, I would expect a dressing down from my manager if I stuff something up, and Lachie Neale was off the chain early. Anyway, so they're 27 and 26 under Ross since he's come back to the club. They played finals in the first year, eliminated by GWS in that elimination final at the MCG. But off the back of some criticism about getting rid of Brett Ratton, but they had risen under Ratton into finals in 2020 and then dropped back down. Ross gets a little bit of a bounce out of the group initially, but I think when you look at St Kilda's list, and we've talked about this previously, we talked about the disastrous pre-season they appeared to have had. They've been okay this season, but the names I've got for you, in Darcy Wilson, good young player. Messiah Wanganeen-Miller, one of the best young players in the comp and out of contract. And then Matthias Filippo, who potentially returns this week from injury. Max King, a bit of a wild card. We don't know how he's going to recover from these knee issues. And then the likelihood that Tom De Koning will be at the club as their lead ruckman next year, getting paid a huge amount of money. For a Roel Marshall into that, does he play forward? Is it the best 1-2 punch, ruck-wise in the comp? I still think there's a bit of upside with St Kilda here if they can get it right, and Ross is a big part of that.
So why are we forgetting about Rowan Marshall? And especially in fantasy land, given you Goat Fantasy, you know this. Well, so Rowan Marshall's just going to play in the forward line now, is he? If they're going to get Tom De Koning. Is that right?
Well, I think the 7-year contract that's supposedly on the table for TDK, they're thinking if Marshall slows down over the next 2 years and maybe goes to more forward, less ruck, then they're still getting De Koning's prime as the number one ruck once Marshall has sort of not faded, but just, he's gone into the latter part of his career. So initially, I know it seems like you're overloading the ruck position because Marshall's been one of the better ruckmen in the comp over the last 5 years. But if they can reduce his ruck load and up the impact, and then you've got TDK, who looks like he's going to be one of the most influential ruckmen over the next 5 to 7 years, then I think I can see the logic.
Well, Blues fans won't be happy with you saying that, Drew, but they will be a little bit happy that they've found some winning form. Are they back? Are the Blues finally showing us what they can do?
Yeah, they were really good on Sunday. 9-day break versus a banged-up Geelong off a 6-day break. I think it's not surprising that they came out and looked the better side in some ways. But Paddy Cripps played his best game of the season. I think he has carried a really heavy load and he hasn't looked necessarily like himself this year, but he was really good on Sunday. And then, a fit and firing Harry Mackay, who looked like himself, and Charlie Curnow, who's back to full fitness, all of a sudden they looked dangerous in front of the ball. So you throw in them winning clearance, winning contested ball with a dangerous forward line. I think that made a massive difference for the Blues. I was pretty rough on them on this podcast. I reckon I said they might be 3-9 at the bye. Well, they've won 3 consecutive games. So they look like they might have turned a corner. So they beat North Melbourne convincingly, as they should. Then they get an upset win over Geelong. And then I reckon they've got Sydney coming up soon. Adelaide not playing as well as they have been the last couple of weeks. There's an opportunity for them to catch up and maybe get ahead of the ledger. So not all doom and gloom at the Blues. And FYI, just mentioning TDK leaving, I reckon there's going to be money to have a crack at someone. Just throwing Zach Butters out there. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's an opportunity there with some money in the salary cap.
Drew Jones says Zach Butters going to Carlton in 2026. Good to hear. Look, I don't know how deep we need to go into this, but Sheezy ball last night, it's just blown Twitter up, X up, social media up.
Cool. Hasn't it?
So without going into what that's about, Harry Sheezel's criticism, fair or foul?
No, this is foul, but discussion about his role and his form is fair enough, but to go to the lengths of Sheezy ball, I think was too far on a guy that has made pretty much every postal winner since his debut for North Melbourne in a side that's won about 8 games in that time, maybe less. So he started the season half forward and a little bit of midfield, and then he probably wasn't getting as involved as North would have liked. So then they roll him more through the middle, still not having as much effect. North losing the clearances, so now they've gone 100% backline last week. So to cherry pick the stat that he had 1 score involvement from 30 possessions when he was playing half back, almost back pocket, I think sort of Kane might be 2 weeks behind in terms of the role that Sheezel's playing and the way they're trying to use him. In his first year, he was great off half back. So I think I can understand why they've gone back to that to try and get him into form. This guy's a talented player. He's super dedicated, great athlete. I think he turns it around pretty soon.
The change in roles of players mid-season always has a fantasy impact as well, Drew, which I know you're across. But Goat Fantasy, what are you looking at this week?
Okay, upgrade season is upon us, boys. So if you've got a Levi Ashcroft, if you've got a Davidson, maybe a Ryan Marrick who's been knocking out 70s for you, which is not too bad. Sam Lawler, might miss this week. You can turn 2 of those guys into your basement rookie, which might be Boxall if you get to debut for St Kilda, or Buslinger. Maybe Luca Grego, you go a week or 2 early. He's likely to come into the West Coast team at some point. Then go to the top, baby. So Dacos in unbelievable form.
Josh?
Looks $1 million.
No,
Josh looks good too.
Josh mate.
Looks really good. Yeah.
He's cheap.
Josh is value. But Nick's knocking it out of the park right now. He had Setterfield and Durham both have a crack at him on Anzac Day. Fought through that absolutely fine. And then Nasai Wangan and Miller are this unbelievable hybrid role of playing in the middle and half back, gets the best of both worlds. And then Christian Petrarca, he's got West Coast this week. He looks somewhere back to his best available as a forward. There's 3 targets for you.
How's your team looking? Where are you ranked overall?
Ranked 200,000s probably. Like the ranking's terrible. But the team's on the up. I've got 2,257 in AFL Fantasy this week, so I'm starting to feel a bit better about it.
Okay, very good. I came up 10,000 rankings. I'm inside the top 5,000 in the country at the moment. So
yeah, there was clearly a loaded point to that question.
I just thought I'd just inflect myself into the conversation. Drewy, well done. Thank you, mate.
Thank you, boys.
Brilliant stuff. Drew Jones there over in Victoria, talking all things footy from the team, the state that's got the most teams in it, right here on the Footy Interchange. The Footy Interchange as we head across to Queensland, which really has been the centre of the footy universe right the way through the start of this season, because they've got the reigning premiers, they've got one of the best teams in the competition going right now, as the Suns look like they're headed towards a first ever finals campaign. Tom Rockliff is with us, of course, 200 gamer in the AFL, Rockliff Finance as well, for any of your finance needs. But Tommy, Q Clash this weekend, we've been forecasting it for a few weeks. Is this the biggest Q Clash in history?
Yeah, I think it certainly is. I mean, you look at recent history, how these teams have performed, and this one certainly shapes up that way. You look back, I only have to go back 12 months, and Chris Fagan was potentially going to walk away. But they got up in that Q Clash. They lost some players before the game. Logan Morris debuts off the back of eating a cheeseburger after playing VFL, and then they lose two to ACLs, and Fags decides, well, it's probably best if he hangs around what the players went through, and he clearly had the playing group still. They go on to win a premiership. And now this year you've got two of the best teams in the competition. The Gold Coast Suns bounced back really, really well last week. I think you called that one, Paps, as well. They were pretty impressive there on their home deck. So really looking forward to this one on Sunday night, heading into a public holiday.
So do we get some physicality? Because I just feel like looking around, like we've got the showdown, the derby over here is cooked. Like no one even cares about it anymore. You know, Collingwood, Carlton. Can we get a bit of maybe physicality, or is there a bit of love between the teams? Where are they at?
No, there's certainly no love. You don't have to go back too far to look at the history of Dane Zorko and Touk Miller going toe to toe, and they've always had great battles. I don't think Zorks will get a match up, although Touk's actually playing a fair bit across half forward, so we may get the mouth-watering contest. Really interesting, though, in the pre-season, they certainly targeted the Ashcroft brothers, the Gold Coast Suns. There was a clear intent to go after them, so we know that Marcus was obviously the footy manager there at the Gold Coast Suns as well. So there may be a bit of fireworks early on in this one, potentially throughout the whole thing. I think the Gold Coast is starting to play on the edge a little bit, which we've mentioned a couple of times. They look like they're finally, the penny's dropped for them, and they want to throw a few punches back. So I think it'll be on. It'll be a really good, strong midfield contest. I think it'll be a shootout. The record of 47 that someone holds disposal in a Q Clash may be up for grabs this week, because I don't think there'll be too many matchups through the midfield. But I think there'll be a few fireworks this weekend, Scully.
I wonder who that could be. Tom Rockliff that holds that record.
Oh, yeah, I think I do, actually. That record.
Great to have him part of the Footy Interchange as well, given he's played well in these ones. The Suns, this seems like a much more important game for them than it does for Brisbane, given what the Lions have done, and they've proven what they can do. The Suns haven't quite done that yet. The famous quote from Damien Hardwick that they have to grow the F up. This seems like the type of game where they need to show that they have grown up and they can compete. And if they get a win here, it starts to prove their credentials that they're a finals team.
It certainly does. And this is their last game in Queensland for about a month. That they go on the road up to Darwin for a couple of games. So they'll certainly want to prove themselves, and it's certainly more on the line for them. I mean, if the Lions lose, is it that big of a deal? Probably not. But if the Gold Coast Suns win, they've still got that game up their sleeve that they've got to play against Essendon. If they had played that game and won that, they'd be outright on top, with their only loss coming against Richmond, believe it or not. So this is a real maturity game for them to see where they're at, see if they can bounce up and stand up against their big brother on their away deck. So I'm really looking forward to the contest, and it'd be great for Queensland footy and AFL footy if the Gold Coast could get up.
Rocky, we spoke about off the top, some people criticising Ross Lyon, giving some sprays and a big spray after the match. I couldn't be more in favour of a spray and just going out on a limb, but I feel like you would have been on the end of a couple. You've played, I have no doubt. I actually have no doubt. But you've played under Ken Hinkley. I was interested to see what your thoughts on the bit of interaction he had with Jason Horne-Francis, who was sizzling after a bit of a melee. What's the conversation there, and where do you sit on the spray part of things as well?
Spray all for them, Scully. I think they need to come back. I'm an ex-player now, but they're highly paid athletes that are in a high-performing environment. You need direct feedback, and I had no issue with what Ross delivered on the weekend. I think there should be more of it. A lot of it would happen behind closed doors, but we protect our images these days and whatnot. But I think Ken's message to Horne-Francis would have been just to take a chill pill. It can happen when you play a team that you used to play for and there's history there. But I think he was just trying to calm him down, say, don't let us down here. And he had some moments, and that's a level of maturity that Jason's got to get used to now. He's had these moments in the past where he lets himself down somewhat. And I didn't necessarily like the part where he went to walk away and Butters had to grab him and rip him back. I think you've got to show your coach the respect he deserves, particularly in those moments, and just take a deep breath. I know that emotions can get the better of us at times throughout, and you can see it often a little blow up, but I'm sure they would have had a conversation after it. But I think the messaging from Ken in that instance would have been just to calm down. And let me tell you, Kenny can give you both barrels if need be behind closed doors. I've been on the end of a couple of them.
Have you? Give us a little one. Just give us a little taste.
Well, it was actually against my old mob when we played Brisbane, and I think he came out and said we're going to target Lockie Neal. In the first quarter, I think we gave away 15 free kicks, and I was vulnerable to a couple of them. And the post-review game and during the game, we were about 40 points down at quarter time, and then they're not enjoyable. Ken is a country boy, so if you've ever been in the country change rooms, you know that the roof can come off sometimes, and I've certainly been on the end of a couple of them.
Really
That's
stuff.
good.
That's so good. I'm not sure we got a tip from you, did we? Suns or Lions?
Oh, I think the Gold Coast by 7 points.
Very good.
Brilliant. Suns, that'd be a huge result for the competition. Tom, always great to chat to you, mate. Can't wait for the Q Clash. Late one, another public holiday in Queensland. Late one on Sunday night.
We hate work in Queensland.
Thanks, mate.
See you, mate.
Cheers.
Tom Rockliff there from sunny Queensland. This one should be Thursday or Friday night now, shouldn't it? Oh, no, it's late Sunday.
Well, I tell you what, you could
7:20
replace
Eastern.
the Essendon North Melbourne mouth-watering clash we have on Thursday, followed by the other mouth-waterer St Kilda Dockers. I mean, come on.
Floating fixture, you reckon?
Boy,
Start rolling
bump
in a
'em
bit
up.
more.
I mean,
Why not?
Sunday night footy. I like Sunday night footy.
Yes.
I like Thursday night footy.
Yep.
I like Sunday night footy. I like Monday night footy. I like more footy.
Yes.
That's what I like.
Me too. Me too. Enjoy another long weekend up there in Queensland. Can't wait for the Q Clash. The Footy Interchange as we head to the best reporter in the West, Eliza Reilly from Code Sports, who joins us to talk all things West Coast and Freo and WA footy. Eliza, great to chat to you.
It's about time she's back.
I know,
Seriously.
as we said off the top, did a very good job filling in the last couple of weeks, so well done. But let's get stuck into Freo. Great win from them at the Len Hall game on Friday night. Which team's going to rock up this week, though? Is it the good Freo, the bad Freo? Are they back? What's your read?
Well, perhaps if you can tell me, I reckon you'd be the best sports reporter in WA. We don't know. They're so inconsistent, but I thought that their performance against Adelaide was the most sort of complete showing of the brand of football they want to play. It was fierce, it was competitive, their pressure was elite, their midfield ran over the top of the Crows, their defence didn't give an inch, and then their forward line kicked a massive score as a result. So it was sort of a result of what JL sprayed the boys with last week. He sort of spoke about it a bit this morning in his weekly press conference that sometimes after a loss, they need a bit of a cuddle, but sometimes, and after the Melbourne loss, he gave them a bit of a kick up the arse, basically. It's what they needed. It's what they required to get back to the form we saw on Friday night against Adelaide. But the challenge is now going to be whether they can maintain it, because they've shown us what they're capable of. But still, I think this season, the gap between the best and the worst has been still quite sizable.
Yeah, so I'm a big supporter of the spray and the stern word, but JL will know he's probably got 3 per year. So I'm hoping he hasn't used one already and that was the second, because then you're in trouble. Like, we've got, 15 weeks left plus finals if they make it to use one. So ideally he's got 2 in his back pocket still, but I loved it and they got the response they needed. Oscar Allen feels like the biggest story at West Coast still. He's a backman now. What's happening?
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how this evolves over the next few weeks. We spoke about it obviously last week and where he fits back into the side, because Archer Reid showing some good signs. Jack Williams put in another decent performance, and Jack Waterman's an All-Australian full forward. So the back line was where he was sent, and it has been a bit jarring to see him lose the sort of speed and mobility that made him such a good key forward, and whether he's still carrying a bit of an injury or whether it's all above his shoulders and he is really struggling with this contract situation he finds himself in. The back line looks like the most feasible place for him to play long term now, because if the Eagles generally believe that he's going to leave at the end of the year and take up one of the offers from Hawthorn or Brisbane, then they can't waste a spot in the forward line on him when they've got to develop these young tools coming through. And Job Shanahan's one who's knocking on the door as well in the waffle. So it's a fascinating situation. It's going to be one we're going to be speaking about for weeks on end. And he didn't train again this morning. So whether he's being managed yet again, it's going to be a long season, I think, for Oscar Allen, both personally and for West Coast supporters, to see where he fits in.
But what people are forgetting about Oscar is he's an on-field leader as well. So people are saying, well, he's not in form, he's not a backman, but you need your captain out there. The reason he's captain, I would say, more so is his stuff on the field. Now, his form's not where it needs to be, but you still need your leaders out there. You can't just throw everyone out and start playing the kids and have no one out there to lead. So he would be in the team right now for his leadership. Now, is he playing as well as he could? No. Jeremy McGovern did the pre-game address on the weekend, so he's probably not doing that. They need him in better form, but they also need him to lead. So I don't have a problem with him being out there as a backman, but as I said over a couple of shows, I enjoyed seeing a forward have to go and play in the back line. I don't think he has lost, every bit of his agility. Playing in the back line's hard. If you're trying to follow Marby or Chol around, you can't just cruise around and you get stepped and mistakes happen.
I can't agree with you, Scully.
Oh,
You cannot be playing Oscar Allen in the back line.
Yeah, no, I think it's a dumb idea.
Gun forward. He is your captain of your club. He's wasted down there. West Coast, if they want to be serious about winning games, they need to get Oscar Allen back into form and playing as a key forward alongside Jake Waterman.
So play him in the waffle.
Well, give him a couple of weeks off to get his body right if you reckon he's been playing sore the last few weeks, and then get him back fresh, because they're not doing him any favours right now, and they're not doing the club any favours. But he is a gun forward when he's up and running. They have to find a way to get him back playing good footy in the forward line.
But if the option's not to play him in the forward line, do you play him as a backman or do you not have him in the side? Because that's the only other option.
I think you don't have him in the side then.
Okay, very good.
But they have to get him back to that point.
Hey, is Tom Barras a forward now, Eliza? Just say that on the weekend against West Coast.
Taking the PISS. No, I think it was a strange move, and there's been a lot of discussion in the aftermath about whether it was disrespectful, and I think Andrew McQualter hinted perhaps to that in his post-match press conference before sort of backing away from those comments, or what he didn't say rather, on Monday night on his Channel 7 weekly slot. So I don't think it was demonstrative. It was maybe a little bit disrespectful from Sam Mitchell, because Tom Barras has kicked one career goal in more than 100 games of senior AFL footy. He's not going to be the bloke you send forward if you need to pull that trigger. It is James Sicily in most instances for Hawthorn. So I don't think it's going to be a move we're going to see too often, Tom Barras going forward, but it was certainly one to get the popcorn out late in that last quarter when the game was getting a bit boring and dragging on.
Adam Simpson threw him forward a couple of times late in games.
He was a forward as a junior.
But
Sam Mitchell's never going to play him in the forward line again.
It seemed very pointed.
There's no part of it that's just disrespectful. You don't owe an opposition team in the AFL respect, to be honest. You just try and win, and then if you want to try and crush them, a move like that, you don't owe anyone respect. It's not disrespect.
And if your forwards aren't dangerous enough, then he's not going to be moving. Last one, Lies. Neil Erasmus, where's he at right now? Obviously, Corey Wagner getting some midfield minutes on the weekend. That midfield depth at Fremantle and the pecking order is really interesting watch.
Yeah, certainly with Wagner playing those midfield minutes and looking quite good and lively in there against Adelaide. I think that puts Neil Erasmus yet another step further back in the pecking order, and he's absolutely tearing up the waffle. Like, he had more than 30 disposals on the weekend. He's consistently getting big numbers in the waffle, but it's just not converting to AFL level. And I think if you're someone like Neil Erasmus, who's been reading the tea leaves, you seriously probably start having to consider your future and whether it is at the Fremantle Football Club, because he's just not getting the opportunities. And now that's obviously because the coaches believe he's not doing enough, or he's not doing something that he should be, and that's keeping him out of the senior side. So they have their reasons. That's their prerogative. He doesn't offer enough flexibility and versatility in that midfield, but he would fit into, I think, a few midfields around the competition at present, and he's someone that was a top 10 pick just a few years ago, and he just hasn't had the chance to build that confidence at AFL level. So it's going to be a really interesting watch for him for the rest of the year, because every time there's been an injury, Jago O'Meara goes out at the side and he can't even get a look in. So I think that it's painting a picture of he's probably not someone that's going to be playing too much senior football for Fremantle unless there is a spate of injuries.
Yeah, the only thing with Neil Erasmus is he's it's the same with Oscar Allen, sort of, that you can't go and drop Shea Bolton for Neil Erasmus. Like, he's behind Brayshaw, Sarong, Young, and now Murphy Reid, probably, sort of, but definitely Matty Johnson. So Matty Johnson he's behind. So Matty Johnson's probably the guy that needs to come out, and he's gone and had career touches on the weekend. So he's just back in the depth chart. I agree with you, Eliza, but you just like for like, he's not going to come in for Jago O'Meara.
No.
So. Yeah,
I thought he would have explored it last year, to be honest, knowing where he was in the depth chart, and I think the team up the road would be pretty keen to get him in.
Yeah, but sometimes as a player you want to win. So I don't know if going to West Coast, okay, you play more games, but they're not competitive.
Wait and see. Eliza, thanks for your time, as always. I'm sure we'll see you in the studio sitting in one of these chairs very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Eliza Reilly there from Code Sports, talking all things WA footy. The Footy Interchange as we get into our injury update with Steve Gravina from Frontrunner Physio in Aussie Park, of course, a former physio in the AFL landscape, and he joins us right now. Steve, great to chat to you, mate. First one I wanted to ask about, Darcy Moore. That was a really nasty one a couple of weeks ago where he copped that knock to the ear. We saw it bleeding at the time, and he's missed a week afterwards.
Yeah, a little bit unusual, especially to see the blood coming out of the ear in a game of football. From what I understand, it's led to a bout of an inner ear infection and then subsequent vertigo. So, we don't tend to hear about these type of scenarios in the AFL landscape, but they can be really prohibitive for the playing group. So, from my understanding, Darcy's got ongoing vertigo symptoms, which made him unable to play last week, and that's a whole cluster of restrictions that you can tend to be from being bedridden, unable to get up, and really dizzy all the time and nauseous, through to just balance problems. And as things settle down, it's not too dissimilar from returning from a concussion. You need graduated exposure back to higher levels of function, and so I'm sure the player's getting that through his rehab coordinator, and medicated as well with antibiotics for the infection. And as all of this comes down, he'll be able to get back into a bit more high level function, back into training with the guys, and hopefully playing this week. But it's no certainty. My understanding.
Can that stuff, that can hang around, right? That doesn't just go, you wake up one day, it's gone.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if it's an infection, a bacterial infection as a result of the injury, where there's an open wound inside that area, then you need to get on top of the bug, and you need the inflammation to settle down around that inner ear region. And then after that, there's a dysfunctional structure within that region in the inner ear, and you need to almost rehab it through gradual exposure. So you become pretty sensitive to sudden movements, whether they be sort of rotational movements or sideways movements. So getting a bump, for example, could set you back, and then you're sort of back to square one. So it takes time. It's quite unpredictable, but good medical care and a good rehab process gets him back.
Jack Silvani is out with a broken hand. What's the process there? And that was a bit of a strange one with Paddy Dangerfield being involved with that.
Yeah, it sort of came out after the fact, and by the sounds of it, needing surgery. So, depending on the site of the fracture, you can turn these around quite quickly once you put a little plate or a pin to stabilise the bone. And a lot of the time, the surgeons are pretty happy just to allow for wound healing to start with. So you might miss 1 to 2 weeks because of infection risk and the risk of that wound not healing up if you hop another knock to it. But if the bone has been stabilised, then you can get back as function allows. Some of the more serious ones, though, that are potentially more unstable for longer periods can require that 4 to 6 week time. But, a fracture doesn't always mean it's a long one, as we see in Adelaide as well with Reilly.
Yeah, that's the other one, isn't it? So we saw him get injured during the game on Friday night, go down into the rooms, get some treatment, come back out, try to play through it as well, but a nasty finger injury.
Yeah, I think I remember one with you, Scully,
Yeah.
a number of years ago.
Not
Can
good.
be,
It's not good looking down and seeing the bones of your finger hanging out of your skin. I can tell you that right now.
yeah, I think it was a similar carry on as well from memory.
Excuse me. Mate, I got stitched up and got back on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, they can be really nasty. Obviously, once the bone breaks through the skin, then that opens up, again, that infection risk, which is a serious medical issue. But the report is that it's not too significant an injury, meaning that it doesn't require surgery for Reilly. So the fracture must be stable once it was relocated after the joint was dislocated, then stitched up. And so you can get through with a guard and protect that finger and sort of get through it. But, during the week, he'll be very limited with what he can do. Like, you might be able to do a lot of ball work early in the week and probably require an injection to play just to enable him to be able to mark the footy. So you manage it over the course of the next month or so, but hopefully you can get through.
We had a surgeon up in the stands eating a meat pie and pulled him down into the rooms, stitched me, so put the bones back in the skin, put the finger back in place, stitched it up on the spot, strapped it up. But he was up having a beer. It's probably not legal anyway, but it happened. Were you involved in that? You would have been pulling the strings in there, Stevie.
Yeah, I remember walking down. It was at Subi, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember walking into the rooms with your blood pissing everywhere. But no, you did well, mate. You did well to carry on.
Oh, thanks, Steve.
Some of those injuries where you just expect players to have to go back out there.
Right. I went out there with one hand. I was running around like I had a big glove on my head.
No thanks.
Big mitt.
I'd be retired forever. Steve, always great to chat to you, mate. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
Steve
Cheers.
Gravina there from Frontrunner Physiotherapy in Aussie Park. When you hear about stuff like that,
yes,
and the players just get strapped up and go back out,
yeah,
people forget how much some players have to actually work through.
No,
and some of those injuries that, okay, it's a finger injury, so get back out there is a bit different to, a leg or a knee or something.
Yeah,
like that.
it might be something we can talk to Steve about next week. But sometimes, the players that are doing the commentary know what happens down in the rooms, and you can't really talk about it on TV or sometimes radio. But I reckon we can talk about it on the podcast. Most of the time, you're going down there and getting local anaesthetic, so you can't feel it. And that means just completely numbing the joint, completely numbing, an ankle or a foot or a toe or an elbow or a shoulder. So when you see a player go down and they come back up, that's what they've done. They've just completely numbed it. So then it's deal with that later. Like an AC joint, let's put 3 local anaesthetics into the shoulder, completely just cook the joint. You won't be able to feel it. You should be able to play.
Yep.
But then when they wear off, you can't move, you can't sleep, you can't think. So that never gets reported. And when we're commentating on TV, you can't really say that. It's just going down to get checked out by the doctors. No, he's getting numbed up.
Well, we saw that Brisbane, I think, played over here a few years ago. And
yes,
there was actually, they did the local in the tunnel with Oscar McInerney, and there was a shot of it on TV.
Mate, Sam Butler ran out one day and they'd just missed the wrong thing and the nerve hit and he'd lost function in his foot. Couldn't play. So it's a dangerous operation, but it is what happens.
Absolutely. Brilliant stuff there from Steve. An injury update here on the Footy Interchange. The Footy Interchange as we head across to South Australia. Sim Thomas-Wilson from the Adelaide Advertiser and Code Sports is with us. Sim, great to chat to you as always. Jason Horne-Francis, lots of people talking about him around the league. What's been the fallout over there in South Australia and the discussion and debate about how things were handled?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Loads of debate. I guess quite amazing footage there of him on Saturday night, kind of one losing his head, then getting kind of calmed down by Ken Hinkley, Zach Butters, and Connor Rosie. I think the chat out from Port is that they're quite happy that he's that passionate, and they'd rather him be passionate than not, and having to calm him down rather than rev him up. So it kind of depends on where you sit. I mean, Scully, as a former player, where do you kind of sit in this thing?
Mate, if I had walked away from a coach like that, I would probably never have played again. I thought that there's been lots of talk about the disrespect Sam Mitchell showed the West Coast Eagles this week. Disrespect is turning your back on someone when they're talking to you. So I didn't like that element, but I agree with you, and it's good to hear it that coming out of Adelaide that you'd rather him that way than the other way. Come on, give us something, Jason. You'd rather be like, mate, just cool your jets. So I agree in that form. Yeah,
I think there's a bit of an understand. Yeah, I guess the turning the back on Ken is probably the thing that people didn't really like as much about it. But I think there's a bit of an understanding at Alberton that kind of is what he is, and he is working on it. Like, this is a guy that pretty much almost had a meltdown when he loses to Willem Drew at table tennis. So he's still learning that way at the moment.
That is great. I'm just imagining Willem Drew and Jason, and then you got Zach Butters and Pal Pepper, Santa Sammy Pal Pepper, and Eliza coming in. Like, okay, mate, it's okay. Get back out there.
Ping pong back going flying in the middle.
Oh, what about Adelaide? We saw them up close and personal here on Friday for the Anzac Day match here in Perth. What's the overall vibe with them at the moment, Sim?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty disappointing performance from them. Outside the fourth quarter where they came back, but the game was over. I think it's a lot of just a bit too familiar for the Crows fans at this stage. Like, they go over an away game, don't start well, get beaten up in the midfield, just can't really just couldn't really get into the game. And especially the midfield is something I think they're really kind of a little bit concerned about now, Crows fans, especially after all the people they brought in. I don't know, you guys saw them up close. What did you kind of make of the Crows against Freo?
Well, Matty Crouch ended up being the one who was subbed out, and it looked like they were trying to change the pace of things. But it was only last week or the week before, Sim, we were singing the praises of this midfield mix. So it can't just be all downhill. Is this a bit of Adelaide Crows fans kind of overreacting to things, or what's happening?
It could be. They can change very quickly. So yeah, very much could be. But obviously, a couple of guys are in form. Jordan Dawson's down on form over the last 3 weeks. That's Jake Salego said yesterday. He reckons his last 3 weeks haven't really been to his level. So yeah, whether they can bounce back, it's going to be interesting. They've got Carlton, who are red hot now, so they're going to be tested again.
Yeah, Jordan Dawson, I was doing the prep for the game last week. He's kicked 7 behinds in a row.
Has he?
As a midfielder.
He's on a Lewis Jetta run.
Yeah, he kicked 2 goals in the first one.
His kicking efficiency, by foot's been really low recently compared to what he normally does.
Yeah, for someone who's normally a very elite kick. The defence has copped a bit of criticism as well. Sim, I thought Josh Worrell competed really well, but they're maybe lacking a bit of height back there.
Yeah, I think Worrell was their best player. I mean, he's the guy that can hold his head up high after that. But I thought poor Mark Keane and Nick Murray got absolutely monstered by Tracy especially there, and McDonald kind of feasted on them as well, because I guess Fremantle was so dominant when they were going forward, and Tracy's such a big guy that they just couldn't really match him. Looks like Nick Murray's not going to play on Saturday, so that's a bit of a blow for them against I guess Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay. With Harry Mackay, and he looks like he has his mojo back, so it's going to be a tall order for them.
Why did Fogarty miss? Was that injury?
He's the shoulder injury against GWS.
That's right,
it's still sore. Like, he could even miss this week. Like, it isn't. There's nothing structurally wrong with it, but he just apparently is that sore. He just could miss again.
Yeah, in danger of slipping back into the pack, the Crows, after such a good start.
No, I think they'll be okay. I think they'll get their mojo back and they'll be okay, the Crows.
Sim, great to chat to you as always, mate. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Sim Thomas-Wilson there from the Adelaide Advertiser. Josh Worrell was very good on the weekend. But
yeah, I loved how
are they
he
a little
played.
bit undersized in that defence, though, when they come up against some of those big forward lines?
Look, maybe. I thought they did a good job on Amos for most of the night. Josh Tracy is almost leading the Coleman, so you would say he's been tallying everyone up, hasn't he?
If the Crows had kicked a bit straighter with some of their set shot opportunities,
mate, Adelaide could have quite easily won that game. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be too concerned with Adelaide. There's others around that mark I'd be more concerned with than Adelaide.
All the latest there out of South Australia here on the Footy Interchange. The Footy Interchange as we head to New South Wales, check in on the Swans and the Giants with Cal Sinclair over there, does a bit of work for the ABC, of course. Great to chat to you, Cal. The one storyline we've been chatting about the whole way through is Chad Warner. Was he going to stay? Was he going to go? In the end, he's staying at the Sydney Swans, which is a big boost for them.
Yeah, definitely was a big boost, and I probably will eat my words. I was very confident that he would be leaving the Swans at the season's end. But the reality is he's only got a 24-month extension. So I think it's pretty obvious that eventually he is going to make his way back to Western Australia. Probably the timing of that signing was West Coast's performances were just pretty much deplorable, which I think probably helped his decision-making. So he's probably got a little bit of a window over a couple of years to kind of see how that list builds, how that club operates, and then, hopefully make a decision for a big payday for the second half of his career. But he must be pretty confident that Labor is not going to abolish negative gearing. You can now rent out that $2 million pad in South. I'm not sure in South Perth. So, he must be very confident that that's not the case.
Yeah, very good. I've done the same thing, Sinclair. I've been saying he's leaving now. So I never said when he was leaving. I'm saying he's coming back from Perth.
Yeah, I'm obviously commercially a little bit more minded, probably as a footballer. The reality is he has left a lot of money on the table, and this is a physical game, and anything can happen at any moment. Those contracts, they don't come around very often, and he'd be one of only a couple of players to turn down that sort of money. So anyway, it's a big call. It's not something that I would do, but he's definitely a risk taker.
Sinclair, great to have you on. So, mate, your hair looks good today. I will say that. I will give you a compliment to start with. Is it people who are into it or not?
Products aren't cheap, mate. And in a world of vanity, it's important that coming on shows like this that I present myself in the best light. So moving on.
You look great. You look terrific. That's all I'm saying. Look, who didn't look great was the Giants. I don't know where I'm at with them because the Bulldogs beat them in every facet of the game. They missed an opportunity there. What are your thoughts on where they're at the moment?
Well, probably two words, Marcus Bontempelli. His return to the game is honestly, from injury, is best that I think we've ever seen. Generally, players, doesn't matter if they're a champion or not, take a couple of weeks to get back, but he has come back absolutely dominating. So they're in a bit of a lull at the moment. I think I've said it last couple of weeks. They are in a window now where they really need to stamp and bank these wins and make a statement to the rest of the competition. They need to stop being recognised as, a top 8 team. They need to get to a top 2 team. They've got the list. Their list is relatively healthy compared to most. They need to be a top 2 team with the talent that they've got. So I think this week it's another statement game, but they need to be recognised as a top 2 team. But the last 2 weeks, it's just shown there's a few little cracks there.
Battle of the Bridge coming up. The Swans and the Giants. Early Sunday game, unfortunately not given the prime time billing, but this is a fascinating clash. How do you think it's going to play out, and who do you think wins?
Yeah, it's the recognition game. So I think Swans need to, that they need to win this desperately more than ever, and it's a big game for them. They just need to, I probably keep saying every week, they can't afford to keep losing, but they do need to, bank a few wins in order to just hang in there around the round 15 mark when they hopefully get a few players back. I think, to be honest, I'm not too confident on the Swans' defence against that forward line. I think Warner and Heaney are going to have the game of their life to stop that midfield, but Giants have got a massive point to prove. We all know what happened in that final last year against the Swans. They literally blew that game. But at the moment, you think Giants are going to be favourites, but the Swans are going to be equally as desperate to win.
All right, very good, Sinclair. It's been great to have you on, mate. I'll let you get back to looking after your beautiful locks.
I've got a Sinker big call, which we did while you were away, but I'm going to throw something out there, which is a little bit left field, but Oscar Allen, just wondering if it's all going to be too much for him by the season's end. Will Brisbane kind of entertain that offer in the current form that he's in? Swans' forward line's a little bit shaky. Could he potentially make the move to the Harbour City? Would he be a good fit for the Sydney Swans? I say he would be.
Okay, I was waiting for the call. So you think Oscar Allen's going to Sydney?
Fact. You heard it here first.
You heard it here first.
Nice, mate.
It's not the worst. It's not the worst call ever if things get a little bit too difficult.
That's correct.
Over in the West.
Would fit in the forward line there, you would think. Cal, great to chat to you, mate. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Big call at the end there from Cal Sinclair. Dean Cox there, of course. Just be able to get on the phone and try and entice him over.
Yeah, that's a good point. Probably was no crossover if I think about it, but there'd probably be enough people floating around the place. They were pretty into Tom Barras for a couple of years there.
Were.
So maybe they need a backman, given Oscar's playing there.
He's playing back. The Footy Interchange, all the latest there out of New South Wales. Well, that's all we've got time for on the Footy Interchange today. Been plenty of issues to get stuck into today, Scully. Thank you.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
It has been very, very good. As always, keep an eye out for the question pod, which will be dropping very, very shortly as well. And as always, Scully, people can get involved and drop us a line.
They absolutely can. So something a little exciting, I think, to reveal. We will be doing the question and answer pod, but we're going to be putting it through Patreon. So our existing patrons of BackChat know where this is at. We provide extra extra content, early release, ad-free stuff, discounts on merch, discounts on sponsor equipment, whatever you need there. And you're going to get a standalone question and answer pod. So keep the questions coming in. If you're a patron, you've got priority access to questions. You can access all of that. If you keep following us on socials, BackChat_, and as well on X, you'll find out some more details about getting the full coverage of the question and answer show, which will live in Patreon for patrons going forward.
Brilliant. So we want to create that community, that family that we've got here on the Footy Interchange as well, give you access to everything else through the platforms too. So keep an eye out for that. And we really want to hear from you and get your questions on the way through. And not just West Coast, not just Freo, but right across the league if people have got issues that they want to chat.
So put them in the questions in the YouTube channel. Reply to Paps and my tweets or X's. I don't know what to call them anymore, but you can reply to us over on X or join Patreon, put your questions through, and we will make sure we answer them. If you're a patron, you get answered. Given it will be living on Patreon, I will be very I'm already open, but you ask anything, I give you the answer. Not a question you can't ask that I won't answer.
There you go. Get stuck into it. Brilliant stuff, Scully. Thank you very much. Keep an eye out for the question pod. This has been the Footy Interchange.